I'm going to ask first question to our guest speakers. In today's investment climate, which sectors or the problem spaces involving Korean innovation are most compelling to you and why? Would you like to take?
So I think Korea has a lot of good technical talent, but you're asking for specific areas. So I think there's a lot of founder grit. I spent actually 3 weeks in Seoul through Plug and Play, so looking at companies and mentoring. So I think there's this energy and this grit. I've talked to one founder, and she was describing how she started in Korea first, and then got some traction, and she immediately said, "Look, I'm just going to shut down the Korean one and just go all in." So I don't know if there's specific. There's a lot of hardware talent for sure. Given Samsung, all these other companies, but I think people have this drive. So I'd be very sector agnostic, particularly in the early stage, for that.
Great, thank you.
I'll be quick. I invest in healthcare, so specifically femtech, so improving the lives of women, and silver tech, so improving the lives of elder folks. And I know with the silver tsunami and everything that we are more than ever tasked with finding ways to support those that are aging. And so I actually more specifically really want to see what happens with menopause, because that affects every single woman, and that also is something that I think is deeply underserved for how many people it affects. So those are things that I'm looking for, and I've invested internationally, and I would love to consider any of those that are within that specific sector.
Great, thank you.
So Ignite excels at the confluence of digital health, wellness, femtech, beauty, much like Cheryl, but we're very, very early seed stage. So finding novel ingredients that K-beauty, Korea is great. A lot of novel ingredients coming from there. So companies that are going to take these novel ingredients and turn them into final products and then bring them to market, those are things that are very interesting for us. Also, as she mentioned with silver, aging in place and all the technologies around that. I'm looking at various different video and non-video solutions, and if someone falls down, but if they have, if the camera can tell there's something wrong on their face versus they just fell down and they're embarrassed, it's good to have the kind of AI that will distinguish between that. So there's a lot of these kind of things that I think are very good coming out of Korea.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to the next question. So from a Silicon Valley and the US perspective, what does global ready actually look like? And how is it different from being successful in Korea?
Sure.
Thanks
for picking on me. I think it's pretty showing curiosity. I think it's not just English wording of your deck, your slides, but showing curiosity to U.S. buyers. So if you look at the American market, very homogeneous, about 300 million people, great purchasing power. So if you're a founder trying to break into the American market, you should maybe replicate the product market fit that you have, but try to adjust it to the American system. Look at what is the buying behavior, what are the workflows that people actually use. So I would encourage to start with the US, probably the most competitive market you can. So if you succeed here, I think that's a great sign. Also, biggest venture capital in the world, right? So this gives you an advantage. Very competitive, things move really fast. So if you can succeed here, I would encourage, with your global strategy to start there. But obviously, there's different ways to slice that.
Yeah, building on that a little bit, I think something that gets missed sometimes is doing the grunt work, the smiling and dialing of making customer discovery calls, customer validation calls in the place that you're going to. You can't make the assumption that just because it's been working where you are, it's going to work the same way. So you need that feedback, initial feedback, before you make many steps. And what I find sometimes, they just call 5 or 6 friends and family and cousins. We're talking about 25 calls to 50 calls a week. Now, maybe you have to hire some interns and give them a list of questions to ask, but you really need to break that down and to understand if you're going to go global.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this, I think, because we've already said a lot on how to be global ready. We spoke for an hour on that. I do think something else that I wanted to talk about just very briefly is when you talk to a VC, like, don't ever doubt yourself that you are not supposed to be there, right? I do think that there's a level of humility and like that comes with the culture, that love, but at the same time it doesn't help you when VC is a lot about confidence game. He kept saying confidence building, all that. Like, it's really important that you come from a position of strength versus one where, like, you know, some founders I see are like begging for money, and I'm like, no. You're presenting an opportunity to me where we can both make a lot of money. So like, act like it is, and it will become. And I just want to really put that on like the cultural side of things, and like making sure you push through that.
Thank you. I want to piggyback on what three venture capitalists already said, but I wanted to also hear from Minji about do you resonate with what three
Do you agree with us?
She's not working.
No, actually, I can't agree more.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, actually, I want to ask a question, like, in Korean VC and startup perspective of view. Actually, there are a lot of like Korean software companies want to entering U.S. markets, you know, and as Thomas mentioned, like AI accelerating global like competition a lot. So we need to go to the U.S. market, but you know, it's like crazy. It's very, very hard for us. So in your view, what does the Korean like deep tech or like software companies need to be recognized as like real technical competitiveness in US? What is the like, most important things for the Korean startups? What do you think about that?
You're supposed to answer the
Yeah,
question.
I think you have to, you know, if you believe what you're doing, which is you should, right? And you have to step out of your comfort zone. You know, we were just talking with Andrew, one of the founders here, and we were saying, you know, he's going to start in Korea and then maybe move to US. Obviously, that's easier. You have your network and so on, right? It's more competitive. But if you truly believe what you're doing, you should try to even at least test it in the United States and see if there's, you know, interest from the buyers and things like that. So it really is kind of doing the difficult stuff, which is stepping out, you know, outside of your comfort zone. And maybe, you know, there are models where you start in Korea, get a little bit of traction, maybe learn something, and then move on. But yeah, I think it's doing the hard thing, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think, Mitchell?
I'm not sure if I agree with that, actually, which I know sounds weird. I'm always going to be team founder. Like, do whatever is best for you that makes sense, that also will allow you to keep as much equity as possible, in my mind. Because I do think a lot of times as VCs, we obviously want more equity for the capital, but capital is cheap, right? It is about the time and effort that you're taking to create this startup, right? So if you have your serious advantage in Korea,
Sure.
Go ahead and do that. I do think sometimes like you want to play in the big leagues and you're like, okay, well then go to US. I would just say that if that's the goal, then if you do start in Korea, just make sure that everything is optimized for that, which is including the US C Corp and making sure that everything is tax advantage so that then you don't give another person the reason to say no, right? Like the moment there's something that's different, okay, no, it's pass, right? You gotta be so elite and 10 times better than everyone to make sure that you're getting those shots on goal. So that's where I'd say. However, one thing just to also, I'm not sure if it's part of the culture or not, but like the mentorship aspect is so important here. Like having someone that's like 5 steps ahead of you, you gotta meet those people. I don't want to go back to the actress thing as much, but what I will say is I feel like a founder a lot of times because I was just telling them during lunch that like I had 250 auditions and I only got 6 yeses. It sounded similar to like a founder pitch. You pitch 250 times and you get 6 yeses, right? That'd be great. And I do think similarly, you got to surround yourself with people who have done it before. So making sure that in communities that you're in, like if you're a pre-seed startup, talking to seed startups, talking to Series A, and then they can help mentor you if they have been already in the US market. So that's where like I know people are shy and they're not really like good to ask for help as much, or like, you know, it's like, oh, like I gotta figure it out on my own. No, because I've seen it. I've walked the gilded halls of Ivy League where everyone is just asking for help all the time, and they will tell you to your face, I need your help. Like, I need you to do this for me. And they will call in favors, they will ask for advice. Like, I have people literally on WhatsApp being like, I've been talking to you, but I need to talk to you now because I need you to connect me to a VC. And they will be very blunt about it. So I need you to be with that same attitude and make sure that you help each other grow and also find people ahead of you that will grow. So.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. Michelle, would you like to add anything to that?
I can't imagine what it would be.
Think hard. I think it's a good point about arbitrage. So if you have access to good technical talent in Korea, and it just makes more sense, then surely you should start there. But I think you shouldn't forget about the American market, or shouldn't not think about what is it going to look like, because that competition is so fast and goes so global quickly.
Great, thank you. So let's shift. So if you were to advise Korean founder prepared to expand globally in the next 12 to 18 months, what are the 3 non-negotiable priorities from the investors?
So you need to be coachable. If you are not coachable, if you are resistant, if you don't want to listen to what's being suggested, that's like, just stop. That's a non-negotiable for sure. Another non-negotiable is not to, after you've made changes, not to revert to your old safe deck that you like and then pull that out of the ether and not go with all the work that was done. This has happened actually a number of times where I've done a lot of work, made a Silicon Valley deck, and then I've seen them show up and use the deck we started with before they change anything, which is crazy. But it's not uncommon. So that's like a no-no. Don't do that. And don't make the mistake of overestimating how much revenue you can make, and be very conservative about what market share. Maybe the better way to say is, I see unrealistic total available market kind of slides. Like, hey, I got this giant bubble. It's a $7 trillion market. Don't fail to say what part of it you think you're going to get. The market might be really big, but I'd like you to tell me what you think you're going to get out of that. If you have no idea out of this big market how much of it is yours, I think that's a problem.
Anything to add?
I think clarity is also a big one. I agree with the coachable clarity. Make sure you're able to clearly communicate. Who are your customers? Who's going to buy this? Like, just very crisp, short answers, I think, are really useful.
I'm not sure if I have 3, but I'll say one is knowing why you're the only person in the world with this unique insight that can really take this to the moon, right? Take a look at the VC math, like taking the VC math into account. If you don't know how this could become a unicorn, because the power law is in full effect, right? It means there's a small number of bets that we make that make the big returns, which means that you also have to believe that you're the one that's going to make it to that level. And so if you can't accurately, like an elevator pitch like you mentioned, or just succinctly say why you are going to make it as a unique product differentiator, I would say that's a really big thing that, it's a red light basically that pops up and you're like, if they don't even believe in themselves, how is this going to work? And so, and then also just doing your due diligence. But I know you guys do that, so you're good.
Thank you.
Let me say one more thing.
Oh, okay. 4 non-negotiables.
I'm making up for the last thing. Don't lie.
Oh, okay, that's true.
No,
Ooh,
seriously.
I do not.
So, we are being paid to take risk. That's our job. There's lots of ugly things that are in the middle of all this stuff, and there's lots of risky stuff. But you have to disclose all the risks so we can make a good judgment. it's totally unfair for you to hide something, and we're making a judgment call unless we know all the facts. And if you hide something, that blows up the relationship and a lot of other things. So just be straight about things that are not perfect. Not a problem.
100%, and I will piggyback on that example because that happened recently to a friend of mine
Oh,
in
so
VC,
sorry.
which basically they gave a bridge round to one of their portfolio companies, and turns out that portfolio company used that money to create a new startup that they were not in.
Ouch.
Bad. That is not good. And VC is a relationship game. So people will talk, people will blacklist you, people will never give you money again, and you do not want to burn those bridges. So that's a really good point that you make.
Well, we'll poison the well for you with everybody.
Right? It also true, yeah.
I think it also comes down to, you know,
Non-negotiable.
if you're
No more
lying,
questions.
there's like a it's double negative, right? We can't help you, right? This is like a risky game, a lot of things are gonna go wrong. But if you're lying about the outcomes, then, you know, the VCs can't help you, or, you know, the network of VCs can't help you. So that will like hurt you twice, or kind of infinitely.
Blacklisted, right?
Right.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter what country you're in, we'll find
Yeah,
you.
we're fine.
Great, thank you. The last question from me is, how should Korean startups think about building credibility and trust with global customers and investors when they lack an established international brand?
So let's start off with milestones. Milestones are forms of promises. So look at what you can do, hit the things you can do, and don't miss them. Now, I've had at least one, and maybe more, of situations where people had a really good excuse for not hitting this particular milestone. Totally legit. But if it keeps happening, it's like, that's impossible. You just can't deal with that. So again, it's part of that trust thing. You know, pick a milestone that's good, hit it. The other thing is, side note, if you win any contests or competitions in Korea, that is not traction. Don't put them on your slides as traction. Look at all the things I won. Look at all these awards. If you got a paid for POC, I love it. If you won something from the university, I don't care.
I'm trying to not overlap with what I've said already. Community is everything. I think I've mentioned that too, with like supporting each other. But community also means digital communities. So finding your developer communities, people that can vouch for you and can really say that you're legit in what you do. That can go a long way because you would never know, once again, who they're connected to. I think LinkedIn is awesome. I also think CTD.ai, I use that a lot because you can link your email and your LinkedIn together, so then you could also triangulate and say like the people I've emailed are also connected to these people in LinkedIn, and so it finds like the warmest connections. So really leveraging AI to your advantage so that you can find the right people to build that community online, because being a founder is so hard. Like, you'll think like, am I crazy at 2 o'clock in the morning? It will consume you. And so like having people that understand where you're going through can go and can help you have longevity in this space. So and that's where, once again, this is all compounding. Like all these steps that you take. I started my career around 6-7 years ago now, which is crazy to say. Almost 8. Oof. No, but point is that on that side is that like I grew up with a lot of people in this space, thankfully. Actually, somebody today just emailed me as well, being like, hey, you might not remember me, but I knew you from 8 years ago, and it's amazing what you've done. Like, I'm like, cool, it's amazing what you've done. And so now being in more positions of power as you grow together, like you can help each other out. And so a lot of VC too, like even from the 80s, 90s, like was all about just everyone who went to the same schools, and now thankfully it's a little bit more decentralized, but we're still getting there. So
Great, thank you. So I think that was enough question for me. I was going to open up the questions to the audience. Is there anybody that would like to ask the investors any question?
Yes. A brave woman.
yeah.
Firstly, thank you so much for the very informative session.
So I got two questions. So firstly, what do you think is the biggest difference between the successful global founders who succeed getting the fundraising in the US market and the Korean founders? So that's the first question. And the second question is, do you think the language could be a big barrier to connect with the Korean founders if their English is not very fluent?
Yes. Yes. You need to come with a translator if you can't do it.
Yeah.
The other thing is you need to come with a CEO. I've had plenty of times where there was a coaching session set up, and the CEO sent the Western Regional Marketing Manager to meet with me and find out what that guy told you and tell me, come back and tell me what he said. No. The person who runs the business needs to be in the meeting, and if they can't speak English, they need a translator.
Right.
Just stop.
I agree. The second question you asked, what's the difference between successful founders that raise venture capital versus Korean founders? I think a lot of it comes down to what you were saying in your presentation. So, adapting to the culture, using LinkedIn, that's huge, right? That's such a powerful tool that you can use. Adapting the slides to more Silicon Valley way, being more transparent, being much more direct. American culture, particularly in Silicon Valley, is very direct, very transparent. Tell me how I can help you. And, don't beat around the bush, don't tell me all the context. I want to know exactly what you need and see if we can work together. So those would be mine.
Yeah, I would just, I would echo the being direct, confident, believing in the big vision and being able to sell it correctly, I think is the biggest difference between successful and those that are not. And the fact that if they already have some network here, that goes a long way for getting meetings. I would say a warm intro is your best intro. If cold can only go so far, warm is you met someone and they can vouch for you that you're cool, they met you in person, great. Or even if just via Zoom goes a long way, affordable email.
Yeah.
I do those a lot. So always happy to support on that.
And I think one more thing, it really is numbers game, like Mitchell was showing. If you do follow exactly what he said, actually preparing all these materials and spending, could be 4 or 6 months, and actually finding 100 VCs that are in your space, you should be in better luck than not doing that. It's just really hard, and most people don't want to do it. It's tedious and, sort of not the most glamorous work, but it really works. So if you can find these warm introductions to these 100 VCs, because the math is pretty awful, right? Most of them will say no. So doing that is
200 VCs minimum, I feel like, in this environment.
I think
and also to echo on the dry powder side. Dry powder just means how much they have left to invest. There are a ton of zombie funds that are not investing anymore. Like they've invested all their capital, they're just walking around saying they agree VCs. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors, which means that you also have to discern which are VCs that can actually invest and which can't. So I've invested in like 4 companies last year through Next Wave. So I'm telling you, I'm an active investor. I would not waste your time otherwise. Some people just want to feel like they're powerful and talk to founders and waste their time. I think it's horrible, but to be honest, there's no checks and balances in this space. So people will just get away with what they want to get away with. So just also be mindful, increase the number of who you talk to, and also take a look and see when they've last invested. And I think that will help you save a lot of time.
After I walked through Eureka Park, I became a zombie investor.
No, but we like Michael. We can go on.
Great, thank you so much. So what stands out from this discussion to me is that the global scale is not just a single leap, but it is a series of disciplined, well-timed decisions that need to be made by the founders. So this officially concludes the official program of the Ajp Global Innovation Growth Summit of 2026. On behalf of Ajp and Aju Media Group, I would like to thank all the speakers and partners and participants for being part of today's summit. So the evening does not end here. So if we invite you to stay and continue networking with the investor fellow guests this evening, and we look forward to welcoming you again as part of the Ajp Asia Startup Summit Series throughout 2026. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.